Are you ready to discover your power with channeling truth? Because today we're talking about contrast. Welcome back to Channeling Truth. My name is Peggy, and I channel Source through my perspective. There are no words on earth to describe what Source is, or what Source means or feels. The only word that we can come up with is the word love. That Source is love. But love, the word love, was actually created on earth through contrast. We came here to experience contrast, and it makes our non-physical and our physical beings who we are. When a baby is born, before it even takes its first breath in the physical world, it experiences almost every negative emotion here in this dimension. This is Source's way to quickly integrate a human being into our laws of attraction, into our laws of what we like and what we don't like. Now, when the baby goes to the parent and it feels their love and it feels that connection from the physical perspective, it knows what that feels like because of the birthing process of all those negative emotions. This creates the baby's first feeling of unconditional love. And it is what carries it through its life. And that is the point of where all attraction is grown from. A lot of people think childbirth is trauma, but contrast is not trauma, and we need to stop calling it that. We need to see it for what it is. Experiences to get us closer to the beings that we were meant to be, to get us closer to our vortex, to get us closer to the paths that we're supposed to be on. Contrast is evolving us. It's creating who we are. And if we are not on our path, we will experience more contrast, stronger bits of contrast. If we're on our path, we'll create contrast. Always will create contrast. But it'll be a lot easier to handle, and it won't be as severe or feel as painful. Contrast is here to tell us what we want and what we don't want. Oftentimes it's a message sent from our higher selves or our spirit guides to get us to be more of who we're supposed to be. It is the ignoring of those messages. It is ignoring of what contrast really is what brings us to our downfall, is what brings us to depression, is what brings us to stronger contrast. Our spirit guides and our higher selves want us to be on the path that we're supposed to be on. And when you are on that path, you're not going to experience severe contrast. Your contrast is going to be viewed differently. It just is. Your higher selves don't want to hurt you. They don't want to create pain within you. But sometimes pain and hurt is necessary in order to get a message across, in order for you to see what it is. Every ache and pain in your body is telling you a message. And if you're not listening to it, what happens? What happens to a broken bone? If you don't take care of that broken bone, it's going to hurt even more than when you first broke it. It's going to get infected. You're going to keep getting the message until you get the message that you need to fix the broken bone. And that is how the universe works. This is our higher selves and our spirit guide in the universe talking to us. Source talking to us, telling us what we need to do through the emotions and physical feelings that we have in our bodies and in our minds. Don't focus on the actual contrast. Don't focus on the problem at hand. Focus beyond it. What could it mean? What is it telling me about myself? What is the reason for it? Why is it necessary? You won't always know right away the reason. But if you focus on that and continue to focus on that every time you experience that contrast, the reason will reveal itself. I guarantee it. Because your spirit guides, the higher self, the source within you, wants you to know this. And it's going to keep sending you the same contrast until you receive the message. All contrast has a reason. Whether it's to create the person you're supposed to be, or it's to send you a message to get you to where you're supposed to be. It always is something. It's never not for a reason. And you can't ever attract contrast. You can't ever be a vibrational match to contrast without it meaning something. Look at it like a light bulb. And you see a light bulb turns on, but what you don't see is the electricity connected to it that's turning it on. And you can't have the light come on without the light bulb, and you can't have the light come on without the electricity. So the electricity is kind of like the message coming in, and the light bulb is like the contrast. Don't just look at the contrast. That is not what's important. What's important is what's lighting up that contrast, which is a message. There's one thing some of you might not agree with, or you might not like to hear, but you are not always in control. There may be many circumstances in your life where you step back and say, what just happened? That is not like me. I don't know why I said that. I don't know why I did that. That is not me. I have no idea what happened. A lot of those times, most of the times, probably every single one of those times you thought that, you weren't in control. You are not just a physical being. You are non-physical energy. And in fact, more of you is non-physical energy than physical energy. So yes, sometimes your higher self, your non-physical self, does take control of your actions, does take control of your vibration, because it needs you to experience something or co-create something with somebody else for a reason. More oftentimes than none, those reasons will be unclear to you, and you won't really understand them unless you're in a state of mind which allows you to be able to think back and look at it. But believe me, there is a reason. There is always a reason. A lot of times in those moments where we don't understand how we could have done something, we get stuck. We don't want to get out of that. We beat ourselves up. We stab ourselves in the back. We create this vibration where our contrast gets stronger. We create this vibration that doesn't allow us to grow away from that experience. And you have to stop. You have to stop. Just the other day, I've been on this spiritual journey for a long time. I have been completely calm and very more stable in my own emotions and feelings within my family life. Even all my family members have noticed it. But the other day, my 2-year-old daughter just threw a literal fit, and she throws fits. Especially when she wants something that she can't have, or she wants something that I just can't give her right then. And especially in that situation when she's super tired. And all the stars aligned for just a terrible moment. And I was trying to teach my middle son, and she wanted something that I had to teach him with. And I just wouldn't give up. I wouldn't give in and just be like, okay, you can have it for a little bit. We'll move on to something else. Nothing was clicking inside of me. All these things that I already knew that I could have done to avoid that kind of situation, avoid it to get out of control, avoid the momentum of what was about to happen to not happen, I couldn't get out in front of it. And even as it was happening, I was feeling myself like stuck in the situation, stuck in the momentum. And part of me like almost felt not there. Well, nothing bad happened, but needless to say, she got very, very upset. I had to calm her down, and I was also feeling very upset, but I never got like super out of control. I just felt bursty inside, I felt really upset. And finally, I was just like, you know what? We need to calm down and then go lay down for a nap because I know you're super tired. And then she laid down for a nap and was super tired, and she went to sleep happy, and she woke up and she was fine, and she was super happy. And I just was beating myself up over it. How could I have done that? I talked to my husband. Well, you could have done this, could have done this, could have done this. Yeah, I know all of that. I don't know why I didn't do any of it. And then it came to me. I wasn't in control. I wasn't in control. And the reason why that happened was because I needed to share it with anybody who would listen. You're not always in control. You're not always going to know the reason why you weren't in control. I did ask my higher selves and my spirit guides if she needed that experience for some reason. And they said yes. And I said, was it a reason that was going to hurt her? And they said, no, it wasn't. And in fact, it bonded her to me even closer. Not because of her getting upset and me overreacting a little bit, but because how we came out of it. How we came out of it together and ended on a positive note. That was so uplifting for her, and so such a profound experience. She needed to experience that. And that was going to happen, whether I created it or not. And because I'm almost always in such a high vibrational state, I'm like hardly ever, I'm never creating these kind of moments. But I did this time. Even after an awesome day. I had an awesome day and nothing was going wrong. Everything was going right and beyond right. Everything was working out so beautifully. And then this moment happened. And I was like, how could this have happened? I was in a super high vibration. But you know what? I wasn't in control. And my higher self dropped my vibration without even me experience anything. My higher self dropped my vibration. So I could create the scenario for my daughter to experience something that was going to be life-changing for her in a positive way. Even though I felt like, from my perspective, it didn't feel very positive. But from her perspective, it was going to be. And that needed to happen. And a lot of times, as ourselves, we don't want to create that kind of pain in somebody else, especially when we're perceiving it as pain from our point of view. But sometimes it's necessary. It's necessary for growth. It's necessary for creating, co-creating, and allowing people to be who they are, be who they need to be in this dimensional reality. So that's what I got out of it. And coincidentally, that came to me when I was coming up with how I wanted to put this video about contrast out there, what I wanted to say about it. Because when I started thinking about it, I realized it was such a huge topic, I didn't know how to narrow it down. But this is so important, because I think it's the number one reason why we bring ourselves down and we can't get back up. But you're not always in control. That doesn't mean every time you've done something bad, you weren't in control and you shouldn't be held accountable. Of course, you're accountable for those actions because those were your actions. But don't beat yourself up over them. Learn from them. Grow from them. Raise your vibration from them. Don't get stuck. Don't get stuck in that loop of manifesting that negative behavior. Don't get stuck in the loop of that momentum, of that negative momentum. Come out of that and realize you're not in this alone. You're not in this alone. Anytime you're experiencing contrast, you should be studying it. At first, when you start doing this, you'll study it after it happens, of course. Then when you start doing it more, you'll start studying it during the contrast, when it's happening. And when you start doing it even more, you'll study the contrast before it happens. And let me tell you, that is a roller coaster of ups and downs. Sometimes you'll be seeing things before they happen, and you'll be studying them before they happen. Other times, it'll slip right past you, and you'll have to study it afterward. But if you're going in this perpetual momentum of a roller coaster ride with your contrast like that, that is how it's supposed to be. That bumpy ride is actually a smooth ride. A very smooth ride. But when you hit those lows, don't stay down there. Come back up. Because that's really where you're supposed to be. Those lows are just learning experiences. and they're lows and you're down there because you can't learn that from a high vibration. You just can't. You can't see it. You can't even be a vibrational match to it. So you got to dip down every once in a while and get your feet wet because you need to learn something from it. And that's okay. And you shouldn't beat yourself up over it. Everything happens for a reason. I know you've heard it, but it's time you start believing it. Truly believing it. There are no accidents or coincidences. Everything happens by plan. There are many roads to take, but every road you take, 90% of what's on that road has already been decided. Your higher self and spirit guides are slowly drifting you down a road where you're supposed to be. And a good indication of where you are is where you're supposed to be is whether or not you're happy. Go by your emotions. Do you feel good? Maybe you're not in the best scenario. Maybe you're homeless. Maybe you have a crappy apartment. Maybe you don't have enough money for food. Whatever the contrast is. Do you feel good? Because if you feel good, there's a good indication that that's where you're supposed to be at that moment. And as soon as that doesn't feel good anymore, that's when you can get out. That's when you can focus on something else. But go by how you feel. Go by how you feel. Because honestly, it doesn't matter. If you're living in a mansion with 6 figures and that doesn't feel good, something's wrong there. You're not exactly supposed to be there. You need to figure out how to shift your reality so that way you can be happy and be where you're supposed to be. Contrast is essential for the expansion of the universe, which is you. You need to understand that. You are the universe, and you are expanding through all your contrast. So just to break down, contrast always has a meaning. So get that message so you can move on with a different contrast, lighter contrast. Be open to receive the message, the meaning behind the contrast. Don't be closed off to that. Look beyond it. Look for the meaning, get that message, and move on. Don't sit around and focus. My last video, we briefly talked about contrast, and I talked about the Wizard of Oz and how contrast is kind of like the curtain, and the meaning is the man behind the curtain in Wizard of Oz. Don't focus so much on the curtain. Yeah, it might be important. You might have to deal with it. There might be some actions you have to take with that contrast, but really focus on the meaning. I guarantee if you focus on the meaning, you'll get a message. And when you have the message, you can move on. You need to focus beyond. Always focus beyond. And the number one thing, no matter what kind of situation you're in, feel good. You gotta feel good. That is the great indication to tell you you are where you're supposed to be. And one thing that me and my husband do whenever we're looking at a situation where we have to kind of go down a fork, we always look at what road gives us the hell yeah. When we feel the hell yeah, we know we gotta roll with it. That's what we do, because that's what we know. That's how we know we're gonna feel the best when we choose that road, because it gives us the hell yeah. So that is, for me, all about contrast. I guarantee you, when you start understanding your contrast, when you start looking at it differently, when you start looking for the meaning instead of continuing to look at the contrast, focus on the curtain and not the man behind the curtain, you are always going to get more of it. But when you start focusing on the man behind the curtain, start seeing contrast for what it is, you will grow from it. It will get better. It will. And then focus on the things that you want beyond that. Focus on the things that you would rather have, instead of what you don't have. We'll talk about that in some upcoming videos too. and that is creating your reality. So just a recap, what we've talked about so far in these videos are perception and contrast. And perception is super important because it is your perception of that curtain that allows you to be able to focus beyond the curtain. So change your perception of the contrast, and you'll be able to look beyond the contrast and look for the meanings. And I guarantee if you change your view of contrast, you will see the world for what it is. It is a beautiful, magnificent, wonderful 3D reality that we live in called Earth. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please like and subscribe and all that stuff. I will be coming out with some more. So keep an eye, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can know when my new videos come out. And I greatly appreciate all your support. Thank you. Namaste. I love you.